We're going to do a quick video with Ned because there's been some dispute about whether hackamores can break a horse's nose. This is Ned from the top. As you can see, his nasal sinuses are separating because he's so old. There is a suture that goes all the way up the front of the skull. This is typical of all horses, not just Ned. You can see where his sinus processes are. Now looking at Ned from the side, this is your formosa hole. This is where your bit cannons would line up if he had a bridle on. Then you would have the gap between where the bit cannon goes up to the molars. His lip would be about here. So anytime your bit stretches up into here, you're going to get into his molars. Now, if he had a hackamore on his head, the nose band would sit here. Oh, Ned, you fell apart. So, nose band, and then depending on whether your curb hook was level with the nose band or slightly offset above or below, the curb chain or curb strap would be in this area. So looking at this, if you pulled as tight as you could on a hackamore nose band, it would be sitting on solid bone all the way across. Not only solid bone, but solid bone over these tremendously large and very heavy duty molars, which would be on both sides of the horse's jaw. So any human being that could break that, you would just have to absolutely be the strongest person on the planet. Now, if I pick this up, Ned's back upright again. I'm pushing on this. This is fairly solid. It's bending. Now, if he had flesh over this, of course, you would have the sinus cavities. There would be some cartilage in here. Your suture would have a cartilage overlay. There'd be a very thin dermal layer over this with some tissue. Muscling actually wouldn't come into play until right about in here. Mainly, it's basically a very thin tissue, nerves and such. But sitting right here, I could literally bang this thing as hard as I can. It's not even going to flinch. There's nothing there but rock hard bone. I would have to beat on this with a hammer to cause any damage to it. So all those urban legends about horses breaking their noses with hackamores, the only way that could happen is if you got down here into this very, very, very thin sinus thing. And even from the side, you can see that up into here, it's fairly thick. I can't even get that section, oops, I shot him off the table, to flex. I'm pushing down on it. It's not even moving. So for somebody to do that, to actually break the nose with a hackamore, granted, if you got on here with bike chain and you were a great big burly man and you put every bit of pressure you had and it was right down here on the tip, sure, you could do some damage. But at that point, your horse is probably going to flip over and squish you flat as a bug. So please do not propagate that urban legend. It's just ridiculous. A properly adjusted hackamore is going to be above this section right here. It's going to be sitting on rock solid bone. The worst thing that it could do is if the horse was really fleshy right here, it could compress right here, maybe block the breathing a little. But typically that would result if the hackamore was adjusted too low. And most people do seem to put them too low. If your hackamore noseband is even with your formosa hole, it's too low on the horse. It needs to be up high enough that it's going to be clear of the bones. And you want the purchase is going to be sitting about right over the molar in here. So again, please don't spread that urban legend. There's absolutely no way that it could happen properly adjusted on a regular horse skull.